Welcome to India CS portal. In this video, we will be learning about the process of annual filing by private and public companies. Now, let's learn what is the basic meaning of annual filing. Basically, annual filing is nothing but the compliances done under the Companies Act, where you need to file your financials with the ROCs, and it has to be done every year mandatorily, otherwise one has to bear with the huge penalties. The law says that the company needs to file their financials, that is balance sheet and P&L, along with various other reports like audit reports and board reports within 30 days of the AGM. Also, a company needs to file the annual return containing various information within 60 days of the AGM. Now, how to file the financial statements? First of all, what you need to do is you have to appoint the auditor. Now, when your company gets incorporated, you need to hold a board meeting within 30 days and you have to appoint the auditor, and he will be holding the office till the conclusion of first AGM. Now, after that, you will be appointing him again in the AGM or another auditor, and you will file the forms like ADT 1, and he will be appointed for the 5 years with the condition of ratification. Secondly, you have to maintain your accounts, manage your day-to-day accounts, and hold the board meetings as and when necessary according to your business profile, and maintain documents like minutes, attendance registers, and various other registers as per the requirement of the company. Thirdly, what you need to do is hold a board meeting by giving not less than 7 days clear notice and get your accounts approved and various other reports like board reports, audit reports in the board meeting. Further, in the case of public companies, you also need to file MGT-14 within 30 days of the board meeting to ROC. Now, the next step is to convene a AGM. The AGM has to be held within 6 months of the end of financial year, that is by 30th September, and in the case of first AGM, that is after incorporation, it shall be held within a period of 9 months from the date of closing of the first financial year and pass necessary ordinary resolutions. Now, the last step comes, that is the filing of forms. The relevant forms like AOC-4 MGT-7, and if there is applicability of consolidated financial statements, then you also need to file AOC-4 CFS. Now, how to prepare the documentations? Let's start with the financial statements. These statements are basically prepared by the auditor appointed by your company. As per section 129, you have to prepare your accounts by the auditor, stating out the true and fair view of the affairs of the company as per Schedule 3 of the Companies Act 2013 and comply with the applicable accounting standards. Now, if a company is having one or more subsidiaries or associates, it shall, in addition to financial statements, also prepare a consolidated financial statement of the company. Secondly, it is auditor's reports. The person appointed as an auditor of the company shall sign the auditor's report or certify any other document and specify the qualifications, observations, or comments on financial transactions or matters which have any adverse effect on the functioning of the company. mentioned in the auditor's report shall be read before the company in general meeting and shall be open to inspection by any member of the company. You also need to check whether CARO and Cost Audit report is applicable on your company or not. The third thing is board report. A report where all the details of the company has to be mentioned. Section 134 of the Companies Act 2013 regulates the provision of board report. The board report is basically signed by the chairman if authorized, otherwise by at least 2 directors. Board report have various annexures like MGT-9, AOC-1, AOC-2, MR3, report about CSRs, and various other annexures depending upon the activity and performance of the company. If you want to reach out the format of board report, then you can reach it at our blog indiacs.blogspot.in. Next step is to make out the annual returns. It is covered under section 92 of the Companies Act 2013. It says that every company shall prepare a return in the prescribed format, that is MGT-7, as they stood on the close date of the financial year, that is 31st March. Please note that all the above documentation should be signed by the respective designated person after the approval of the same in the board meeting that we discussed earlier. Your final step is to call an AGM by giving not less than 21 days clear document notice in prescribed format to all the members, auditors and directors of the company. The notice should clearly mention the date, day, time and venue and transactions to be considered at the meeting. Conduct your AGM on the specified schedule and pass necessary resolutions. Now we shall come to our main objective of the video, that is how to do the form filing.
The first step is to go to MCA website and then download the forms from MCA Services Company Forms Download. From here you can download the form AOC-4 MGT-7. Now let's proceed with the process of filling of form AOC-4. This is the form AOC-4 for filing of financial statements, that is balance sheet and P&L data. Now you can see that the first segment is the general information. You don't need to fill the authorized capital and number of members. First step is that get your SIN of the company. If you know the SIN of your company, just enter the SIN over here and click on the pre-fill button over here. When you will do this, you will see that the name of the company, address and email ID of the company comes auto-filled. I'll just show you a demo of it. As you can see, the authorized capital, name of the company, address and email ID comes auto-filled. Now the next step is the financial year to which financial statement relates. It means you have to enter the starting date of the financial year and the ending date of the financial year for which you are filing your financials. Let's start with the starting date, that is 1st April 2016 if you are filing for financial year 16-17. Now when you will click on the to date, you have to enter the ending date of the financial year and click enter. Now you can see when I clicked enter, the another part of the form got opened where you need to enter the information required. Earlier this form was not properly opened. This is the check form security. Now the next step is you need to enter the date of board of directors meeting in which you approved your financial statements. Now next is the nature of financial statements, that is provisional, adopted, revised or any other. As you have adopted your financial statements, we will go with this option. Now, if you are having adopted, so it will ask you again two subpoints whether provisional was filed earlier. If it was filed, then you have to click yes, no, or not applicable. Whether adopted in adjourned AGM, then you have to select the option applicable on your company. Now the next question is the details of the directors, managers, secretaries of the company who have signed your financial statements. Here it is talking about the balance sheet and P&L. Now you have to enter the DIN number or PAN number of whoever has signed your financials and your date of signing of financial statements. When you will enter both of these information, just click on the pre-fill button over here. Then the name and designation will be auto-filled. I'll just show you a demo of the same. Now after entering the DIN number, I have clicked on pre-fill. Now you can see that the name and designation comes auto-filled from the MCA portal. In the same manner, now you have the next point is whether your AGM has held or not. If your AGM has been held, click on yes and enter the date of AGM and the due date of the AGM. If you have filed for any extension, then enter the same over here. Next point is whether the company is a subsidiary company as defined under clause 87 of section 2. If your company is a subsidiary, then you have to click on yes and then you have to enter the information of your holding company. But if your company is not a subsidiary company, then click on no and proceed further. Next question is if your company is having a subsidiary. If your company is having a subsidiaries, click on yes, enter the number of subsidiaries company. After entering 1 or 2 as if how many you are having, then click on pre-fill button after entering the SIN of the companies. The next question is the number of auditors. Here you need to enter the number of auditors, like if you are having 1 or 2, enter the same over here. Then the information asked is the income tax PAN of the auditors, the category of auditor, whether he is an individual or the auditor's firm. Now here the question is information is coming, enter membership number and click on pre-fill. Just enter your membership number over here and click on the pre-fill button. Then the entire information, that is name, address, will be auto-filled from the MCA. Enter the SRN number of the ADT1. ADT1 is filed for the appointment of auditor. Enter the SRN over here. Next question is whether Schedule 3 of the Companies Act 2013 is applicable or not. Nowadays, the provisions of Schedule 3 are only applicable on financial statements. So, click on yes. Now, select the type of industry, that is commercial, industrial, banking, insurance, power company or NBFCs. In whatever company or deals, select the option. Next is whether consolidated financial statements are required or not. It means if your company is having any subsidiaries or associates, then you need to file the consolidated Now this information, enter the share capital structure for both the years, that is current year and the previous year. Then you need to enter the non-current liabilities portion over here, that is your long-term borrowings, deferred tax liabilities, other long-term liabilities, long-term provision. You can easily match your data with the financials provided by the auditor, and you can easily fill them over here. As the auditor has provided you all the information, just enter your information here, your liabilities and your assets. Please ensure that your total of balance sheet is correct, that is your asset and liability should match. Next is the detailed balance sheet items. Like if you are having the long-term borrowings, that is unsecured from the banks, from the other parties, any deposits, any loans from the related parties, any other loans that are unsecured has to be reported over here in this section. As you have reported the long term, in the same manner you have to report the short term borrowings also that are unsecured. Next is the long term loans and advances which are unsecured. If your company has given any long term loans, then you have to provide the information in the form. Next is the long term loans and advances which are doubtful. That information has to be fed over here. The next comes is the trade receivables. The trade receivables which are secured, unsecured, doubtful have to be entered over here, which are exceeding 6 months or which are within 6 months. The next is the financial parameters. Just read each and every point very carefully and then you have to enter the information over here. If you are having any intercorporate borrowings, secured, unsecured, or any warrants have been issued during the years, or if there is any default in the payment of short-term borrowings or long-term borrowings, enter the information over here. Next is the net worth of the company. The net worth is calculated as the share capital plus reserves and surplus minus the miscellaneous expenditures. So calculate the same and enter over here. Then if you are having any secured loans, the gross fixed assets, depreciation calculated on them, the miscellaneous expenditures have to be entered. The next is that if you have raised the share capital during this financial year, then if equity shares are issued, then the information has to be entered over in this column, and if preference shares, then over here. This is the specific information which has been asked due to the demonetization period. Details of SBNs held and transacted during the period between 8th November to 30th December 2016. This is specifically for the financial year 16-17 only. If you are having any transactions related to this, the information has to be entered over here, and this is compulsory. Next is the information related to the cost audit. There are some parameters which define that your company can do cost audit, that company falls under cost audit or not. If your company falls under this, click on yes and then enter the information which has been asked over here, that which product is covered under CETA Act, whether audit has been done or not. If it is done, then click on yes and provide the information over here. The next segment is the profit and loss account. Enter the from period of the previous year and proceed further. You have to provide the revenue from your operations, means the main business activity. If you are having any revenues from that, if you are selling your goods or services, or if you are manufacturing them domestically or non-domestically, then information has to be entered here. If you are having any other income that is apart from your business income, then enter in the second column. This will cover your total revenue. Next is the expenses. If you are having the cost of material consumed, purchases, any change in your inventories, employee benefit expenses, managerial remunerations, payment to auditors, please ensure that if the bifurcation has been asked in the form, you should give all the bifurcations over here, and the rest of the expenses can be entered in the other expenses. Automatically your profit will be calculated over here. Then if you are having any exceptional items or extraordinary items, enter the same. Then your tax expense, that is current and deferred tax, and your profit will be auto calculated. Then you need to enter the earning per share before extraordinary items and after extraordinary items. Again, in the same manner as you have given your detailed information of the balance sheet, in the same manner you have to provide for your profit and loss account. If you are having any earnings in the foreign exchange, enter the information here. Any expenditures, the financial parameters, like if you are having any proposed dividend, earning per share, income and expenditure in foreign currencies, rent paid, or any cross value transactions with related parties, that can be found in your audit reports. Now here comes the details related to principal products or services. Means your company is dealing in which product or service has to be categorized from the ITC or NPCS list. You have to find out your code from the MCA. The MCA has given you a list of ITC codes and NPCS codes. You have to identify your product from that list and enter the codes over here. The relevant turnover has to be entered of the product. Next is the CSR reporting. If your company is having CSR applicability, click on the yes button. Turnover and net worth will be auto calculated. Net profit of the last financial years has to be entered over here, that is 16, 15 and 14. Profit before tax and the net profit as per section 198. Average net profit for the last 3 financial years will be auto calculated from the information given above table. Now what is the prescribed expenditures? That is the 2% of the average net profit has to be entered over here. Then the total amount spent and the amount spent in the local areas. Now you need to give the detailed expense you have done on the CSR activities in the prescribed format. The next segment is the disclosure about the related party transactions. Now, if you are having any arm's length basis transaction or not at arm's length basis, you have to enter your information over here. The same information you can get it from the AOC-2 that is annexed with the board reports. Enter the number of transactions over here. Automatically that number of columns will be opened and you have to enter the name of related party, nature of relationships, the nature of contract, approval of the board, date, amount has to be entered. Next is the auditor report. Now the form has been updated as per the demonetization. You have to provide the information over here, that is whether the auditors have reported whether the company has provided requisite disclosures in the financial statements as to holding of SBNs. If it is yes, then click on yes, otherwise no. Now the remarks related to the CARO. Whether the audit report has been qualified or is having any reservation or adverse remarks, you have to click on yes if it is having, no if it is not. If your company is having CARO applicability, then you have to click on yes. And from the CARO that is being provided by the auditor, you have to search it out whether they have given a favorable remark, unfavorable remark, or disclaimer remark, or it is not applicable on your company. Please ensure that you insert correct comments over here, as you may fall in risk if you put wrong information over here. Whether the secretarial audit is applicable, there are different parameters given whether the company falls in this category or not. Just check your applicability. We have on our blog applicability article. Just go through that article and you will get to know the applicability of various clauses on your company. If it is yes, click on the yes button. If it is no, then click on no. Next is whether detailed disclosures related to director's report has been attached or not. If you're attaching your board report, click on yes, otherwise no. Next portion is the attachments. Attachments basically whatever the papers, that is the financial statements, auditor reports, board reports, which have been provided to you by your auditor, has to be attached over here. Just scan your papers and click on the attach button, and then you can browse the documents from your system. The form takes only PDF files, so you should have a PDF file only. Select your PDF file and click on the open button. You will see that the list of attachment will carry your attachments. If you want to remove any, select the same and click on remove attachments. Now the next is the declaration. You have to write the resolution number and the date when the board of directors were authorized to sign this form. Then select the designation of the director, manager, whoever is signing the form. Enter the DIN number over here. Then next is the certificate by practicing professionals, that is the chartered accountant, cost accountant, and the company secretary who are in whole-time practice can sign this form. If your professional is associate, click on associate. If it is fellow, then fellow. Enter the membership number over here. Now when you will fill whole the form, then you need to click the check form. Now the parameters for the check form is that it checks whether you have filled all the mandatory items. Some dates are checked, whether you have put it correct dates or not. After ensuring that all your information is correct, just double check your information and click on the check form button. You can see that I have not entered any information related to practicing professional because it is having a criteria that if you are having a small company, if your company falls in the definition of small company, then you don't need the practicing professional information. So I will click on check form. You can see that the form level check form is successful. When your form level is successful, then the next step is to put your digital signature over here. Just click on this box and then configure your digital ID. You have to insert your DSC token in your system, and then you have to select your token and enter your password. When you will put your digital signature over here, it will look like this, and then you will see that check form button has been disabled and the pre-scrutiny button has been enabled. Just click on pre-scrutiny button. Then if your pre-scrutiny is successful, the message will be displayed that it is successful. If there is some error, then you need to check and resubmit your form. It means you need to check form it again. The next step is you have to file this form with the ROC. For that you need to have your login on your MCA. Then after having a login, then you have to upload your forms and pay your challans and submit your forms. Now the next form is MGT-7, that is for filing of annual return. Let's start how to fill this form. The first step is to fill the registration and other details. In the same manner as we have filled, enter the SIN number or GLN of the company and pre-fill. You will see that the name of the company, registered office address, email ID have been pre-filled. Now your step is to fill the PAN number of the company. Enter the telephone number with STD code. If you are having any website, then the website URL, date of incorporation will be auto-filled. Next comes the type of company, category of the company and subcategory, which will also be auto-filled from the MCA. Whether the company is having a share capital and whether the shares are listed on stock exchange. Both these information will also be auto-filled from the MCA. Now the next step is the financial year from and to date. That is, when is your financial year starting and when is your financial year ending. That dates have to be entered here respectively. After entering these dates, the next step is to enter the AGM dates. If your AGM has been held, click on yes and enter the date of AGM and the due date of AGM. Next is the principal business activities. Enter the number of business activities in which your company is dealing. After entering the number of business activities, appropriate columns will be opened. Now you need to select the main activity group code from the desired options. If your company is in manufacturing, then it can be C. Then the business activity code, like if you are manufacturing food beverages, then C1 is there. If you're manufacturing leather products or textiles, then C2. In this manner you can select the codes and get to know which is your business activity from these codes. Now the percent of turnover of the company from this activity code has to be entered over here. Next is the particulars of holding subsidiary and associate companies. If you are having any holding company, any subsidiaries or any associates, enter the number of companies over here and then you need to enter the SIN number under columns and then click on pre-fill button. You also need to enter the percentage of shares held. Next comes the share capital, debentures and other securities of the company. Here you need to enter the number of classes of equity share capital. Suppose I'm having one class, then I will enter 1. Then I will give the description of my class, the authorized capital, issued capital, subscribed capital and paid up capital has to be entered over here in terms of shares. Then the nominal value of shares, that is if you are having 10 rupee share, 100 rupee share, 50 rupee share, the same has to be entered over here. Then comes the preference share capital. If you are having preference share capital, in the same manner you have to enter the information of preference shares. Then if you are having any unclassified share capital, the authorized capital of the same has to be entered here. Breakup of paid up share capital. This is the next part where you need to enter the number of shares for equities at the beginning of the year, the number of shares, the nominal amount and total paid up amount. If your share capital has been increased during the year through any of these mediums like public issues, right issues, bonus issues, private placements, ESOPs or any other manner mentioned over here, then enter the appropriate amount of shares over here. Then automatically if you are having decreased during the year, the information has been to be entered over here. At the end of the year, capital will be auto calculated. In the same manner you have to enter the information for preference shares. Next information asked is details of stock split or consolidation during the year. For every class, the information has to be given separately. If there is any split or after split conditions, then you have to enter the number of shares and the face value over here. Next is, if you are having any transfers at the end of the financial year, then you have to enter the information of the transfer over here. If you are not having, then click on nil button. You can also attach a separate sheet if you are having n number of transfers. Then you need to click on yes over here. The sheet has to be attached in the case where you are having more than 10 transfers. Then you have to enter the date of previous AGM, then the transfer details, date of registration of transfers, type of transfer, that is equity share, preference, debentures or stock, number of shares transferred, amount per share, ledger folios of transferor, transferee and their name details have to be entered. In the same manner, another transfers have to be entered. Next is the indebtedness. If you are having any non-convertible debentures, partly convertible debentures, fully convertible debentures, enter your information. Then if you are having any secured loans or unsecured loans in your balance sheet outstanding, then information has to be entered over here and here. Then comes the details of debentures. If you are having any debentures, then appropriate details have to be entered here. Securities, that is other than shares and debentures, then this information has to be set up in the 5th column. Next is the turnover and net worth of the company. The turnover which is given in your P&L account is entered over here, and the net worth can be calculated by using the net worth formula. Then comes the shareholding pattern of the promoters. Firstly, you have to identify who are the promoters of your company. Just check the definition given in the Companies Act and get to know who are the promoters of your company. Once you get to know the promoters, then take out the percentage and the number of shares they are holding. If they are individuals and Indian, NRI, foreign national other than NRI, the appropriate information is entered here. If the government is holding, insurance companies, banks, any, you have to enter the appropriate information in front of them. Then you have to enter the total number of shareholders who are promoters. In number you have to provide. Then comes the public, shareholding pattern of public, that is other than promoters. So calculate the number of shares holded by the people who are in public, that is other than promoters, and enter your information in the appropriate column. Then you have to write the total number of shareholders other than promoters and the total number of shareholders, that is promoters plus public. Then the information of promoters and members and debenture holders has to be given at the beginning of the year and at the end of the year. Next comes the details of directors. So identify whether your directors are promoters or non-promoters, nominee directors. Then after identifying it, identify whether they are executive directors or non-executive directors and the percentages of shares held by them. Next comes the number of directors as on the financial year end date. Means on 31st March who were your directors. Enter the number of directors over here. After entering this, you will see that I have entered 3, so 3 columns have been lined up. Enter their DIN number or PAN numbers, their name, their designation, number of equity shares held, and if those directors have ceased, that is after closing of financial year, that is between filing of the form and after the closure of financial year, if they have ceased, the date has to be mentioned here. Particulars of changes in directors. If your directors have been ceased, or if there is change in designation or new directors have been appointed, so that information has to be given here. Next comes the member meetings. Now here you have to write the information of the number of AGMs or extraordinary general meetings held during the year. So you have to enter the number of meetings that have been held. Suppose I'm having one AGM held that was of previous financial year. The type of meeting, that is AGM, the date of the meeting, total number of members who were entitled to attend the meeting, and number of members, that is attendance, has to be given, and their percentage of total shareholding. Next comes the number of board meetings held. As per the law, you have to check that how many board meetings are compulsory for your company. Like for small companies, 2 meetings are enough, but for the big companies, you need to hold 4 meetings at appropriate intervals. Now you have to enter the date of meetings, total number of directors associated as on the date of meeting, and the attendance of the directors. If you are having any committees like audit committees, CSR committees, nomination and remuneration committees, then if you are holding any meetings associated to them, the information has to be given. Next comes the remuneration of directors and KMPs. You have to enter the remuneration, if any. If it's not there, then click on nil. This information can be found from the Form 16 of income tax. Then comes the matters related to certification of compliances and disclosures. If your company has complied with all the Companies Act provisions, then click on yes. If not, you have to give the reasons and your observations over here. If the company has gone through any penalty or punishments, then your information has to be written over here. Then it is asking whether complete list of shareholders has been enclosed as an attachment. So if you are giving an attachment, click on yes. If you are not, then no. Then comes the compliance as per subsection 2 of 92. It means if secretarial audit is applicable on your company, then you have to go through this compliance. Then comes the declaration part, where you have to write the resolution numbers and date of the board meeting. Then you have to write the DIN number of the director who is going to sign this form, and the information of company secretary or company secretary in practice who is going to sign this form as a professional. Please note that small companies do not require a professional certification, only big companies are required. Then comes the attachment part, the list of shareholders, approval letter if your AGM has been extended, MGT-8 attachment or any optional attachments if any. After filling the whole form, you have to click on the check form button. Check form button can only be done when your information is fully filled. Click on the check form and then you need to attach your DSC over here of the directors, and then you have to go for the pre-scrutiny of the form. Pre-scrutiny will be enabled only when your form has been signed by your directors and professionals. After doing the pre-scrutiny, you have to go and upload your form on the MCA website by logging in. Thank you for watching our video. Please like or subscribe our channel if you found our video interesting or useful. Thank you so much.